there, welcome to the Focus Podcast with Taralee. This is the place where we talk about real life, real relationships, and how to grow through it all. If you're looking for simple mindset shifts, better communication, and deeper connections, you're in the right spot. Let's dive in. Well, welcome to the Focus Podcast. I'm so excited for today's guest. I have Iuri Melo. Did I say that right?
Wow, I love
Okay.
how you tried to say it with like your
I
cool like
know.
Spanish accent. It's Yuri. I mean, you can say it with like
Iuri.
the English accent is Yuri Mello, or you can try for the Yuri Mel, which is
Iuri Melo. Okay,
yeah,
Iuri
Yuri.
Melo. There we
Yeah.
go. He's a
I love
licensed
it.
therapist with over 20 years of experience. He's a best-selling author and co-founder of SchoolPulse, which we're going to talk a little bit more about. And I'd love to turn it over to you to kind of introduce yourself and a little bit about what you do.
Man,
Welcome.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on, and I'm glad that you and I have already kind of had a chance to connect just a little bit. But sure, I'll start from the beginning. Well, maybe not the beginning. That's too far back, but I'll just tell you a little bit about my own personal life. I'm a married man. I'm married to my sweet girl, Katie. We have five incredible kids, and we live honestly in just an idyllic place in southern Utah that's kind of just surrounded by just beautiful national parks everywhere. It's just this beautiful high desert. And I've been a therapist for 20 years, which really has been, I would say for me, just such a rich area that I've just been able to focus on and grow as an individual. And I think more importantly, it's really allowed me to just be involved in the nitty gritty of people's lives. And honestly, it's beautiful. I think it's motivating, it's invigorating. It's been very good for me. It's kind of what sparked me to write a couple of books. In part because I just had all of this stuff kind of running around in my mind, and my books were really kind of a way of just purging all of this stuff and putting it on paper and hopefully putting it in a way that is helpful to people. And then, of course, about 7 years ago, we kind of started School Pulse just down here in southern Utah. It was actually a difficult year in Utah as a whole. We had, I think, even just down here in our community, Taralee, we had 7 student suicides in our area. I think even up north, I mean, I was going to say like Harriman High School, they had 7, I think, just in their school, which is just tragic, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, at that point, by then I had released a couple of my books, and the principal, actually, where my 2 oldest girls were going to school, actually reached out to me. He had lost two of his own students to suicide. And he reached out to me really to kind of begin this conversation. I mean, if you can imagine at this point, like just the pressure on him as an administrator,
Mhm.
not just from the community, but from the district as a whole. And really all that he felt like the only thing that he had at his disposal were just reactive strategies, right? So
Oh,
in a
yeah.
way, he's kind of just passively waiting for crisis to happen and then kind of just responding, right? And so him and I began to kind of have these I don't know what to call them, these little mastermind conversations where, I would go to him and he would come to my office and we would just chat about, how can we just be more proactive? Like, how can we be more engaged? How can we be truly preventative? And that was really the beginning. And then later on, I met with Trent Staley, who's the other co-founder of School Pulse. He's this genius software engineer. And when he kind of heard this idea, he said, "Hey, like, let's do something about that." I think he had this real great desire to build tech for good. And so within, I think, honestly, just a few weeks, he had kind of built the software foundation of School Pulse. I had kind of built the psychology side of it, and we launched. And our launch was very simple. Basically, all that we were doing was just we would just proactively text students with just a little
Hmm.
questionnaire, and then the students would respond with like a 1, 2, 3, or 4. And then we would send these canned mass messages back. And it was very simple, very rudimentary. Um, but a few years as we kind of just grew very, very slowly, he was busy with his projects. I was busy with my private practice and trying to provide, right? And a few years into it, Trent mentioned to me, "Hey, these students that were proactively texting, they're trying to engage with us, like they're trying to talk. And at that point, we were not talking, like we were just providing proactive text and then kind of some canned responses back. And so we kind of discussed things and we thought, hey, what would happen if we started to engage back? And so we
Hmm.
did. And at that point, we became very aware of lots of things, by the way, of number one, just how incredible adolescents are. There's just this incredible energy that teens carry. And I think when I was a young boy, I think stuff like that would just intimidate me, right? Walking into a high school or a middle school was kind of intimidating. But now I just revel in it. Like just that incredible energy that teens have is just incredible. But we began interacting with students, and not only were we hearing about just how incredible these lovely creatures are, but also the challenges, right? How lonely they
Yeah.
were, how sad they were, self-harming, kids reporting physical or sexual
Hmm.
abuse, parents were divorcing, they're depressed, they're homicidal, like all of these things. And we were just providing not just live individual support, but we could literally drop incredible tools to them right over text. In fact, that's what that
That's,
little QR code right there is. This is how kids opt in. I mean, you can just grab your phone, scan that. It's not an application. There's no usernames. There are no passwords. You just literally get a text on your phone that says, "Hey, welcome to SchoolPulse." And from that moment on, what we try to bring to schools is from that moment, we provide those students, right, with a
hmm.
live support student all year long, before school, after school, through the holidays, through the summer. And it's just one of our tools, one of the many tools now that we provide to schools as a way to enhance their suicide prevention efforts, as a way to bolster their wellness and the students' academic success. And so we went from one little text a week, right, of just delivering kind of these little questionnaires to at one point we were sending three a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then students said that's too much, so we went to two a week, and now we send every Tuesday and Friday. Every Tuesday we create just outstanding videos for kids with just topics that are relevant to them. I'll send a link to you, Tara, that you can share with
Yes.
your listeners if you wish.
I
And
have
then
watched
we
some of them.
send
It's so
other
great.
inspiring content. Yeah. And so
Hmm.
it's just a great way. Our focus really is, I always tell people that School Pulse is a positive psychology program, right? Our
Hmm.
focus is less on just identifying risk factors and really more on building the protective factors, the things that could potentially insulate kids from
Hmm.
depression, from anxiety, from suicide. And that's really where our focus is. And we just love it. And we have other tools. We've tried
Well,
really
that,
hard to listen, I think, to
yeah.
administrators, to counselors, and trying to find out what are you looking for? What are your problems? How can we resolve those problems and do it in a way that doesn't burden you?
Hmm.
Because I think if there's one main complaint that we hear from schools is we don't have as many resources as we want, and we
Hmm.
certainly don't have the time, right? And so we try to
Yes.
create these solutions that they can touch once and never touch again. And text is a great example of that, right? A student opts in and the school is hands off
Hmm.
until, of course, there's an emergency, and then, of course, we can collaborate together and provide support. But meanwhile, we're providing all the support at no burden to them. And so that's kind of
I
how
think
we,
it's
yeah, that's how we help schools and how we multiply their efforts. But
I think it's so great. So as somebody had, I have a history of, I was a substitute teacher for a lot of years when my kids were younger. I think my youngest was in fourth grade when I started as a substitute teacher. So I was in the schools. I was in my daughter's, I kind of found where I loved high school. I loved being in the high schools. And so I subbed in the high schools a lot. And then I was an office manager for an elementary school for a while. So I've been in the that side of it, with that. And so I know the need for it. And I love how you meet these kids where they are, especially, teenagers with just an easy scan app and, they can talk. And I know you talked about at one point, maybe tell us a little bit more about who they're getting on the other end of that sometimes too, not just the little messages that you send, which I've seen some of your videos, which I think is so great because it's like just on their level, I think a lot too. But tell me a little bit more about like who they're finding on the other end because I find that so interesting.
Yeah, we have a team. We call it the positive interaction team. We kind of have a motto. Our motto is any interaction is a positive interaction, right? And so
Hmm.
we like like we talked about, and maybe I'll have you opt in just at the end just so you can get a sense for what it is. But when students opt in, right, we they usually love to kind of poke around the system, right? They want to figure out like, is this a real person? Is this a bot, right? Is this AI? And it isn't. It's not a bot. It's not AI. These are live individuals, and we have live professionals like myself, and then other trained paraprofessionals. In addition to, we have some really wonderful partnerships with actually with the University of Utah, with the University of New Mexico, with Southern Utah University, where we take some of their bachelor's and master's level program students, and then we
Okay.
train them, right? And we kind of put them into this. And so that's who they're meeting is most of the time. I mean, I'm thinking about my entire team right now are probably kind of these young adults, right? Probably ages
Hmm.
23 to probably 31 is about where we're at. Some of them are in college, some of them are in university, some of them are going to school. Um, and these individuals just meet them there, right? And so when a student responds back with, hey, are you a bot, or is this for real, or F you, or honestly anything, because that's what teens do, right? They're just a little
Yep.
bit wild, and once again, that's where our motto comes in, right? Every interaction is really a positive interaction because it
Hmm.
allows us to then converse back and to greet them with enthusiasm, to thank them for being there, for asking them questions and seeking to understand. And then when necessary, we love to provide suggestions. We love to drop some resources right on their text. Like it's just brilliant. So we actually drop those videos as we're conversing with them. We're like, hey, we've got a video that I think might be an interesting one for you. And we drop the link and they can watch it and we could talk about it. So it's just a really accessible tool, especially, I mean, if you can imagine in states or school or counties, right, where there just are not a lot of resources, right? And we know that
Hmm.
there's a need for mental health. And so this is just a very simple way, right? It's incredibly accessible, right? It's private,
Hmm.
it's easy, and it's a great way for students to tap into to not just get some support, but to get some real tools, to get some real skills. And so that's one of the ways that we fit into schools really well, is we end up being this service, right, that can just proactively engage students, intervene when necessary, but then we just continue on. And Taralee, if you can imagine, I mean, we have students that we have been texting for like years, like
Yeah.
3 years, like where we've just like
Hmm.
we continually engage them. Um, they engage with us when necessary, right? I mean, we don't expect kids to engage with us every week. Sometimes students engage with us once and then we don't hear from them for months and then we hear from them again, right? When it's needed, when it's necessary. And that's exactly what we want, right? We're not meant to be, we don't want to distract from whatever it is that they're doing. We want to enhance whatever they're doing. And so by providing them with incredible tools that hopefully are not cringy, that are fun, that are filled with enthusiasm and packed with fabulous strategies that we hope they can begin to kind of just adopt into their mindset, um, so that it can enhance, all areas of their life. So
I love it. I love that. I know some of the things that, and I believe it's schoolpulse.org, correct?
that's
And
correct.
you can see some videos and things, and I've kind of played around in there and some of the videos, and they're just, it's not like 2 hour long videos that you put out. They're just short, keep the kids, attention and stuff. And it's so, helpful. There's just different things and the way it's organized too on your website. Like, okay, I maybe I have some questions about anxiety or, different things. And it's so accessible to these kids. And I think it's very helpful to them. And then to parents, I know a lot of my listeners are parents. Tell me a little bit about like what you would say to parents about this, because I know like what if their school's like, oh, we're not going to do this? How can these parents get access to this?
Well, and this is something, and I appreciate you saying that. So it sounds like you've kind of looked at our mental health resource, right? So, and
Hmm.
Taralee, and I know this is going to sound, I don't know, cliche maybe, but we truly have created the most comprehensive and complete mental health resource for teens, like in the country, probably in the world. Like there just isn't anything like that. And I know that that sounds like, whoa, Yuri, really? And it's really true. And we've organized it, like you've said, by topic,
Hmm.
so that every parent can access. And this, in fact, this is one of the very first things that we do whenever a school comes on board is we provide this mental health resource for them, all organized, kind of
Hmm.
branded for their school, and we just deliver it for them. And schools put that up on their website so that students and parents can immediately have access to these incredible resources. We did that, honestly, Tara, because as we have now met with thousands of schools throughout the country, we just realized that schools didn't have anything on there, or they would have a
Hmm.
couple of PDFs or a couple of things, and I just thought, we can do so much better than that. Like we can provide schools with an increased access to vetted resources immediately. And so that's what that mental health resource is. And I'll provide a link to that and to all of the videos. Your parents can have full access and they don't have to put emails or anything like that. They're just there for you to look at, for you to utilize with your own children if you want. Like, so just we'll provide that to you so that you can take a look and every parent can see it. In fact, that's one of the things that we do, right? So one of the other things that we do that is creates zero burden for schools is we immediately deliver an email campaign that goes out to every parent just once a week. We don't want to spam parents with a ton of content. It's once a week, but we deliver that student success activity of the week to that parent. And when I say student success activity, that usually just means it's our student success video for that week. That
Hmm.
usually corresponds to kind of the time of the year and what students are going through at that time. And then it just has like a couple of reflections question, a little quiz that usually schools utilize as a way to kind of engage the students in those discussions. But we provide all of that proactively to parents, right? It's really
Wow.
important. This is a really important key. Parents are very involved. They want to be involved. They don't want to be left in the dark. They want things to be transparent. Um, and that's what we do. So it all goes out to the parents and we encourage them, like, go look at all of our content. And what we have now done, I mean, we've done hundreds of parent meetings, board meetings, school meetings, district meetings, et cetera, et cetera. Um, in part to address that concern, right? That parents want to be aware of what's going out to their kid. Parents have questions, parents have concerns about what's going out to their kids. And so the best thing that we've done, right, is we just proactively provide everything. In fact, we invite parents to participate on our live text-based support as well. So over the years, we haven't just been able to intervene with students who are really struggling, but with parents like who are themselves struggling with substance abuse or dealing with
Mm.
divorce or who themselves are going through some like major depressive episodes or other situations. And so we really try to be a complete solution to schools like who are looking to increase student success, student well-being, and just improve that environment as a whole by strengthening parents as well.
I love it. That is
Yeah,
so great. I think that um, I do have a question like what do you feel like maybe is from your perspective and what you see coming through from these teens and stuff, what do you feel like is maybe their biggest struggle right now? I'm sure like through COVID and stuff. I mean, I was in the schools, I was working in the
sure,
schools during a lot of that, but that I'm sure maybe still carries with some of them. A lot of them maybe were pretty little now at this point. I know
sure.
my kids were teenagers and stuff, and now my youngest is 19. But just carrying a lot of that, through their schooling. What do you feel is like maybe the thing that they're struggling with the most that you see more common?
I'll tell you a couple of things, right? So, I mean, I think most of us are fairly familiar with some of the data, right? I mean, it was just a couple of years ago when, the Surgeon General basically said that, this teen mental health crisis is like the defining crisis of our time, right? And he kind of pointed to all of these metrics, right? How persistently sad students are, how often they're having suicidal ideation, how many of them have attempted, the amount of kids who are
Mhm.
self-harming, the amount of kids who are feeling lonely, who are feeling anxious. So unfortunately, we're living in a time right now, and I don't say this in a pessimistic way, by the way, because I'm super optimistic about it, but we are living in a bit of an age right now where all of these metrics, unfortunately, are trending in the wrong direction, like in the direction that we don't want. Like our kiddos are struggling in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways are also really remarkable. But things that we listen to are probably the things that you're thinking of. Is one of the things that we hear from schools a lot is just student apathy, like students just being kind of just disengaged, not wanting to engage, not seeing
Mhm.
a reason or meaning or purpose to engage. And so there's a lot of just apathy, like, I don't really care, like not engaged. And so that's actually one of the things that we try to proactively send to students is we try to give them reasons, right? We try to motivate and inspire them to see that where they are, right? They are absolutely at the right place, doing the right thing at the right time. Like everything that they're doing, even though it feels challenging, just like it probably felt for you and I, right? We kind of have this love-hate relationship with school. And yet it it just literally opens up all of these doors for them, right? That would be almost permanently closed had they not should they not engage. And so that's one of the things that we hear from the schools a lot. We hear a lot of comments from schools about increased behavioral issues at the school, not just like issues with like absences or tardiness, but other like behavioral issues like in the classroom, which I'm sure that you
Mhm.
saw as well, Taralee, when you were there subbing. And so we
Honestly, like
obviously
I
try to.
didn't. I think they get a bad rap a lot
Maybe you're
more than
right.
there are so many good kids. When I
Yeah.
sub in the schools, I was like, we're fine, people. Like these are good kids. They really are. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your thought there,
Oh
but
no, I,
it's
I
so
actually
true.
love that you say that. I actually love that you
Oh,
say that because even though I feel like. And once again, we really have kind of a unique perspective here at School Pulse because I mean, we've now had over the years, I mean, over like 100,000 plus users, right? And so these are just
yeah.
kids, right, who tell us about the good and the bad, right? All
Mhm.
of it, right? And 80% of our interactions with students are positive, right? I mean, they're talking to us about this game or passing this class or relationships that they're having with friends or and all of the good.
Mhm.
And then of course, 15 to 20% we're talking with students who are struggling, right? They're not doing
Mhm.
well, they're having challenges here and there. But overwhelming, like it's overwhelmingly good. It really, really is. But there are some struggles. And the struggles obviously we can see what they are and we try to proactively engage them in a way to minimize whatever that struggle is, right? And so, and then the other one, of course, right? And this is one uh, that I think is, it's everybody talks about, it, right? Which is kind of these our phones, right? And that's where we're coming to kids, right? We're coming to them through phones because we know that that's where they are. Like 90 some percent of
Mhm.
kids, are now walking around with a smart device on their phone. And there are some really fabulous, fabulous things that those phones can bring to us, certainly to my personal life and to the life of my kids. But man, there is some stuff in there that's challenging. And that right now, I believe, is harming our kids. And yet, I think I'm with you, Tara. I'm very optimistic.
Mhm.
I think we have now taken these fabulous tools and we've placed it in their hands and they're using them. And I think they're struggling with them, but I think that they're actually going to find some of the solutions along the way. But meanwhile, I think that there's just a tremendous amount of just misinformation and disinformation that they're just being like exposed to.
Hmm.
Um, and that can be harmful. Like, I mean, it's as simple as that. Like, it's harmful
Yeah.
to them. I think they just get caught up and rage baited all the time,
Hmm.
and uh,
Well,
and
I
that's
think I
just kind of
love
how it
that
is.
what some of your messages that you send and the things that you have framed all of this around is I think you do a lot with cognitive behavioral therapy, right? And so
Absolutely.
you've taken the psychology of a lot of it and the things that they are receiving from School Pulse, I think is incredible because it's stuff that, like you said, they get a lot of negative stuff, but let's offset that with some positive things that they're getting. So I think, if we can, schools and parents and however we can, present them with some of these good things too, because they are getting a lot of negative stuff. One thing I in preparing for this interview, I listened to some of other podcasts that you were on, and there was one that you talked about how you help these kids turn to their parents and their guardians and grandparents or whoever. You're not you're helping those relationships with some of these things, and I love that because I love one of my favorite books that I love is that oh, what's it called? It's Hold On to Your Kids: Why
Mm.
Parents Need to Matter More Than Their Peers or something. I don't know if you've read that book before,
I
but
have not, but I've heard of it, and I need to.
yeah. Yeah, that's a really good one because I loved how you said that, how you kind of help these kids and help these relationships and these families because that's the key. I think that's the key. I know one of my other favorite books is that Johann Hari, The Lost Connections.
Mm.
Another good one that if you haven't read that one, but how we need to have these relationships. And that's like my whole goal is to help people with these relationships and keep them important to these kids because, you know, and that's what I think that School Pulse does and what you talked about in one of your maybe do you know
Sure.
what I'm talking about in
Oh
that
yeah.
interview that you had about that? Go
Yeah.
into that a little bit.
So it's very important to me. Number one, because I'm a parent myself, right? And I do realize, right, that the best suicide prevention that we will ever make in this life are positive relationships, and particularly those with parents or guardians
Mhm.
specifically. And so School Pulse, we never present School Pulse as this like final solution, right? We're just an intermediary, right? And our big goal, right, is when we're connecting with kids, is always
Mhm.
like, how can we get you connected, right, to your primary source, right, to your most important network? And that important network is your relationships with your parents, if possible, right, or your guardians, or those grandparents, or aunts and uncles, or siblings, right? Those are
Yeah.
going to be the networks. Those are going to be the supports that are going to be with you. And then second, just from that, right, as we do everything in our power to connect those incredible students to the professionals in their schools, right, to their
Mhm.
administrators, to their counselors, to the social workers who are there, right? So that's our goal. Our goal is always we're there as this kind of incredible catching tool because we're just so incredibly accessible, right? Like we're
Mhm.
literally tapping you on their shoulder a couple of times a week and just saying, hey, check this out, or what do you think about this, or engage with us here, or how are you feeling today, right? And then students begin this conversation. We provide support, we provide resources, but our goal is always, hey, have you spoken to your parents about this? Do your parents know? Are they aware? Would you be willing to talk to your parents, right? And so our goal is always to direct them there, in part because once again, we know that those networks are the ultimate suicide prevention mechanism. Like that's the best strategy that we can possibly
Mhm.
do, which by the way is why we provide our tools to parents too, right? Because in a way, we believe in parent development too. And that includes for me, right? I'm always like, we got to figure this
Yes.
out ourselves, right? We got all sorts of blind spots and sometimes some of those videos. And I would even say, I would just encourage for some of you parents, especially those, who are having kids who are maybe just now getting with, or having a cell phone, or maybe who have had them for a little while and you're kind of identifying some issues or concerns. Man, we have some fabulous videos. We have a great video. I think it's titled "Is My Phone My Friend or My Frenemy?" The other one is called uh, "What is Fubbing?" Fubbing is actually a really funny term, so that's snubbing, but with the phone. It's called fubbing. And that was some of our teens actually taught us that term, which was just fabulous. I have one on misinformation and disinformation. I have a couple of others on social media. They're just great, and I promise they are not preachy. These are the kinds of videos that you could watch to learn, but that your teens could watch as well. And they wouldn't feel like, oh my gosh, like this guy's just going to talk about all the crappy things about my cell phone again and blah, 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 blah. I hope that I can present, I hope that I presented in those videos the kind of content that can be easily absorbed by teens because I'm not coming down in some pessimistic or like preachy way, but I'm presenting information to them that hopefully will be really beneficial for them so that they're not getting caught up, in some of these other people's just like little rage campaigns. And we just, sad when we see our kids get caught up in those, and they will
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, unfortunately they will,
Yeah.
but I think, we'll link all of these things in
Yeah.
the show notes and stuff too, and where to find you and all that too. Um,
Sure.
I know we're probably running short on time here, and I know you've got a lot of
No, you're
things
good.
going on in your work and with what you're doing. But if there was one thing that you could tell parents, if there's like one mindset shift or a little bit of encouragement to hold on to, what would you tell parents that are listening to this about
Oh, I love
that?
it. Yeah, I'll give you two things if you don't mind. I'll say
Mhm.
one. One of the things that I would say is maybe not to do, and then maybe one thing to do is I would say don't preach fear to your kids. Like send your kids out into the world with with confidence, like that they can go, right? Like you can go into the world, right? And there's incredible goodness out there, and the opposite is also true. There's craziness out there as well, and you're going to be able to utilize and be a part of incredible things, but that you're also going to be caught up and experience some mistakes. You're going to make errors. You're going to fail in lots of ways. You're going to be even taken advantage in some ways, um, but that you can rise above, like, right? And I feel like that's what the whole concept of positive psychology or even cognitive strategies, right? Is this understanding that our psychology matters, right? That our ability to interpret the events in our lives matters more than the events themselves. And these are really the skills that we're trying to kind of to slowly provide them as with the kinds of tools that will help our children, right, to take all of the events or things that are happening in their life and to somehow synthesize them inside of them and to have them become a strength, right? I mean, that's like the
Mhm.
ultimate doctrine, right? That's like the ultimate like psychology is all of these things that we experience can be for our good, right? They can somehow benefit us and enrich our lives. And I know that that's tough. That's a pretty courageous idea, but it's a really necessary one. So that's what I would say is don't preach fear. Don't preach
Mhm.
that they can't or constantly like this world is a terrible place, but that they can go forth with confidence. Like go into the world, experiment, right? And experience and feel like you can grow. And then the other thing that I would say specifically for parents, and this is kind of, I steal this from Gottman, John Gottman, who's kind of the relationship guru a little bit, right? He's written lots on how to
Yeah.
improve relationships, but he has this concept, which your listeners or you, I'm sure, are familiar with. He calls it like with ratios, and he said whenever you're dealing with relationships, right? you always want to have this ratio of 3 or 5 to 1. And what that really means is 3 or 5 positive events for
Mhm.
every one negative event, right? And and really he even goes like, for a relationship to really be strong, for it to be really positive, it's probably more like 10 to 1. And so I would say, as a parent, I would say your job is to make sure that you are maintaining those ratios with your children, like
Mhm.
3 or 5 or 10 to every one negative interaction, right? Maybe you're having that one really difficult or critical conversation with them, or you're having to discipline them or hold them accountable, right? And those are difficult, right? But then make sure that we are adding 2, 3, 4, 5 positive for every one of those negatives, because that's what's going to keep that relationship a place where your kids will want to go, where they'll feel safe enough to open up. Because if they don't, they won't. Um, and so that's what I would say is if I could give you your job description, I would say, like, here it
Yep.
is. Like, keep your relationships with your children at that 3 to 5 1 ratio. Start your days
Yeah.
well, end them well with them as much as you can, and just do those things. And I'm not talking about like big things. I'm talking like, I don't know, go to the grocery store and get a candy bar, or go to In and Out, or pick up a drink over here, or go for a walk or a run, or play video games with them, whatever it is, or watch their favorite series with them. Like those
Mhm.
little events that create those little connections. And back to kind of our suicide prevention, not only are you creating a great connection, but that's actually the best thing that you could possibly be doing to prevent that child from ever taking some tragic action in that respect. So, anyways, those are a
Yeah.
couple of things.
I love that. I love it so much. And I think, listeners that have listened to me for a while hear me talk about that because we mess up as parents.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
I think letting their kids know that we're doing this for the first time too. Like, we're not perfect. And that repair, we may mess up, but we need to repair and showing them that, hey, look, I really messed up. Can I fix this? Can we, move on, or can you forgive me? Or look, just repairing those times that we do mess up and we do acknowledge those. But, I like how you talked about, just little things, watching their favorite show and
sure.
meeting them where they are. And I think that's a huge key in building strong relationships with these kids because, I mean, I know, like you talked about with schools, that they have to kind of a lot of times go into it with, once something terrible has happened, and let's prevent some of these things. And I mean, we can't prevent all of them, and sometimes we don't always see all these things, but being able to talk with these kids and how you do, and hopefully have them have a safe place where they can go. If it's not a parent, if it's not, maybe it's a coach or a teacher or a friend or something that they can talk to, I think is huge and so important. And I'm so glad that they have this school pulse. So we got to figure out how to get them in schools here in South Carolina. If they're not
Let's go.
already, let's get them here.
Let's go, Tara.
I actually do have my sub teaching license here too. So I need to figure out how to get you out here. So, because that would be so cool. But I think it's so great what you're doing. Is there anywhere you want parents to go, or anyone listening to this to go? Any final words you want to leave with them about what you're doing? Anything?
Sure. Yeah. Well, like I said, I hope you. I mean, we're going to share some of those links with you, and I hope it's helpful to you. I hope, if especially if you're a parent, or whether it's of just early teens or a little bit later on. But I hope you can see some benefits to using those. And you can hear my wife, making herself a smoothie in the background. I apologize for that, but
I can't hear it, so
so
you're good.
okay, good. But I hope that that's of use to you guys. But then, of course, I mean, if you want to reach out to me, you can certainly do that. You can go to schoolpulse.org. You can also just reach out to me individually at Iuri, and that's spelled Iuri. It's kind of a strange spelling, at schoolpulse.org, and just email me directly. And if you happen to be watching this video, I don't know if this is just a podcast or if it's a video, but you can
It's
scan that QR code and see what SchoolPulse is like on our
Yep,
text-based support. And you can just, that's our demo account, and we'll just
that's
have you be part
perfect.
of that, and it's pretty awesome. So,
Yeah, we are on YouTube also, so
oh, great.
they can find us there. So, and we'll make sure we put some links. So I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, what a pleasure.
Thanks for hanging out with me today on the Focus Podcast. If something stood out or helped you in some way, feel free to share it or leave a quick review. It means a lot. Keep showing up, keep growing, and I'll catch you in the next episode.